Like I said, my best friend committed suicide. I think about him all the time. I wish he was still around, and I wish I could talk to him. And I just feel like maybe this kind of talk, this kind of video could have perhaps helped him at a time when he needed it most. My best friend, he committed suicide, and it's been kind of a dark relationship with life since then. I guess the reality of that option has just become more real since losing him, you know? And this is coming from someone who knows how it feels to feel just like wholly and utterly useless, to feel like nothing you do works, like everything goes wrong, to feel like even attempting to progress and move forward is pointless because it's just not going to work out. Like nothing ever works. All you know is failure. I know how it feels to feel like life just isn't going the way it was supposed to go. You know, you feel like somewhere along the line it just went off the tracks, and you're in a place you're not supposed to be, and you're someone you're not supposed to be. And to have just this deep discomfort with just yourself, to feel like you'd rather die than live another day as this failure, as just this useless thing, you know, like the world would be a better place without you. I'm very, very, very familiar with that feeling. And I haven't heard too many people make this point to someone who's dealing with that darkness, that depth of hopelessness. But for me, I found it useful to realize that even your failures are a worthwhile contribution to the human experience. This is something that I realized, and after realizing it, it felt like a veil came off of me. And let me explain, let me just go into it. It seems like our society really fetishizes victory. It fetishizes success. And by contrast, it demonizes anything that isn't that, right? Anything that isn't massive wealth, you know, or extreme independence, or, you know, the illusion of independence, right? You did it on your own, you're self-made, you know, you're a winner. And we're not even allowed to be negative. We're not even allowed to talk about our pain and our suffering and, you know, the darkness. We're not allowed to talk about the darkness unless we put some kind of twist on it, right? There always has to be this fucking twist to things, right? It has to be motivational by the end of it, or it has to be aspirational. You can't just express the pain that you're carrying, because that's not what success is. It's like there's this narrative, there's this grand narrative of what we're allowed to be, how we're allowed to be. And I find that not only is it oppressive, I think it's toxic, I think it's anti-human, and I think that it's the very thing that drives many people to want to be suicidal. Someone who's dealing with that sense of being useless and of being a failure, I think it's directly tied to how our culture turns people into tools, into something that's supposed to be utilized. It's like you're a thing that's supposed to do something. Rather than a human being, you're supposed to be a human doing. And if you're not doing the thing that you're supposed to do as a human, i.e. be successful, make a lot of money, be attractive to the opposite sex, then the message that the culture has sent to you is you shouldn't be here. You're better off not even being around. And I think that's so, I don't think that the suicidal response is unreasonable in that sense. And that's not to justify anyone making that choice. I mean, I lost my best friend. I miss him every day. I think about him all the time, and I wish he was still here. That's not to justify and say that he made the right choice, but it is to say that he had his reasons. And I don't think that it was solely him. I think that our culture failed him. I think that our leaders conveyed this message to him, and anyone who's suffering with these thoughts. I think that there's been a failure of the people who are communicating to you, right? That when you lose, when you fall short, when you fail, that this isn't acceptable, that this isn't something that you can do. And I had the realization, what made me feel much better is you absolutely can. And not only do I think you can, but I think that even in your failure, even when you lose, even when you're being useless, you are not useless in that sense. That label is a misnomer. It doesn't even work, because your very presence is a worthwhile contribution to humanity, right? The example that I would give is there's a picture of Michael Jordan. He's like doing a dunk, and the defense is this is a basketball reference I'm talking about, and I promise if you stick around this will make sense. Michael Jordan's doing a dunk, and the defensive player is like crumbling under Michael Jordan's aggressiveness, and he's slamming the ball. And that picture, you see that picture and you think, well, what makes this picture so great? And many of us, because of how our culture has programmed us to think and believe, we might assume that Michael Jordan is what makes that picture. But that picture has many different people contributing to it. You also have the person who is, being dunked on by Michael Jordan. And on one hand, because of our programming, you probably feel a resistance to me saying that person is just as important to that picture as Michael Jordan is. He is just as necessary. And to put a value judgment on them and say that Michael Jordan is more valuable than that person's contribution I think is a mistake. It's not right. It's not correct. The way that this works is you have the successful people that would talk down on people who are unsuccessful and the failures, not knowing that their very identity is dependent on their existence. Right? Without that contrast, success can't exist. Your victory, your winner, your exception, your outstanding, your clout, that can only exist because you have the other. You have the ordinary, you have the regular, you have what you would label as inferior. But this is just as essential to this. You can't have one without the other. And so even in your failures, even when you fall short, even when you lose, you are still contributing something that we need. We absolutely need. The richness of life doesn't show itself without everyone playing a particular role. And that's not to say that you're relegated to that forever. We don't have to always be in this position, but if we find ourselves in this position, we should understand that it's necessary. Sometimes somebody has to do it, and there are some people with massive egos. Well, they'll say, oh, well, it's not going to be me, or, I'll always be exceptional. And it's like, yeah, that's good for you, man. Good for you. But understand that this self-confidence and this ego that you're feeding yourself with, that you're trying to thrive on, that you're only enabled to do that because there are other people that you're contrasted against, right? So that wealthy man, he's only viewed as desirable because there are other poor men around. In that sense, poverty isn't something to be hated. It's not something that someone who is successful should despise and look down upon. This is your collaborator. This is your teammate. You need these people, right? The people who fail, the people who aren't exceptional, you need them in order to even identify what exceptional is. You need that frame of reference. How are you going to know what beautiful is without the ordinary? How are you going to know what it even means? It's like with height, right? When you call somebody tall, their tallness is relative to what everyone else's height is. So if everyone else is here and this person is here, we only know he's tall. We can only call him tall because we have this reference point. Without this reference point, you don't have tall. And if you have somebody who derives their joy and their sense of happiness from other people, right, from that reference point, then you very much need these people. And so if we do find ourselves in that position, it's a worthy position to be in, is what I'm saying. It's one where you're not disqualified from being loved, right? The love and the regard that everyone gives to the hyper successful and the people who are on top, there's some love due as well to the people that they're framed against, because you don't get their greatness without that frame of reference. And so if we find ourselves in a position where we are framing against others who are great and who are incredible, we're just as much, in a real sense, we're just as much a part of their greatness as they are a vessel for it. We're contributing to that picture. And so no one is useless. No one is unnecessary. that you need all of us. All of us are contributing to this picture, and everybody is necessary. To the people who hate, mediocrity, they hate mediocrity, they hate failures. I think that's a sign of self-hatred, because even if you were successful in destroying mediocrity as a concept, if you convince the entire world to be exceptional, no one would be exceptional. You would lose the very thing that gives you your sense of power and identity would no longer exist. And so how you identify yourself is really important. Is you go beyond someone who is either worthy or unworthy, depending on whether you're winning or losing, whether you're useful or useless, whether you're popular or unknown, whether you're working a job that pays a lot or pays a little. Who you are is so much more valuable than just what those labels tell you its value is, right? You are worthy of being loved and being appreciated regardless. Like, whether you're winning, sure, we can celebrate you. But even when you're losing, you are still worthy of being celebrated and appreciated. And even if other people fail to see that, that doesn't mean that you lose that value. It doesn't mean that you lose your worth. The contributions that you make just with your presence, just by being here and contributing to that frame of reference, that's amazing. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's just as beautiful. The person who's being dunked on is contributing to a beautiful moment just as much as Michael Jordan is. They're both worthy of being celebrated. They're both important. They both mean something. And that's the thing, is we oftentimes forget that we mean something. Even when we're being dunked on, even when we're playing defense, even when life is attacking us and we're on guard, right? And we're not dominating, and maybe we're being dominated. It's like we still matter. It's still you're still important. You're still necessary. And I think oftentimes we're hoping that the world and other people will like validate our worth, will confirm who we are. But the problem is a lot of these people are also lost in their value and who they are. They also believe that the only time that they're worthy of being appreciated and loved is by earning it, rather than it just being your default, rather than it just being, I am love. I can be loved. Even if we're playing a game and I come out bottom of the bottom, I underperform like hell, I'm still me. Like, I can't be defined by the outcome of a situation. I am me. I'm here, and I'm worthy. I care and I love and I have good intentions. I'm worthy, and you're worthy. You're deeply worthy. These situations can't define you. And when we're asking others to define us by our outcomes, right, to tell us how worthy we are, this is like asking someone who is lost for directions, someone who doesn't know where they are, asking them to tell us where to go, and they can't do it. How could they? And so society, I think, needs to take a step back. We've had really good marketers, really good business people convince us that we're at a deficit, and their product or their service is going to be what closes the gap and gets us back to being worthy and worthwhile and worthy of celebrating. And it's like, what the fuck? This is backwards, totally backwards. And it's funny because it's easier to sell to people when they have it backwards. It's easier to sell to people when they have it wrong. And so, since we were kids, just consuming these advertisements and watching these TV programs, seeing these celebrities, and, they're trying to sell us on how insufficient we are. But their bottle service in the club, or their overpriced sneakers, or their exclusive brand or whatever the fuck, like somehow buying into that it's gonna close the gap and take us from ordinary to extraordinary, which is where we're supposed to be. And it's like, I am exactly who I'm supposed to be, where I'm supposed to be. Buying your product is not going to, and here's the thing, is we've bought so many of these products and services, and they never fulfill, right? They never truly deliver on what they're supposed to deliver, because, and we know this because when the next product comes out, they can rile up that same insecurity. We feel that same void, and we feel that same need to, you know, get the next update or to get the next big thing. And that hole is, they can always just press on that hole and irritate it until we cave and buy the thing that's supposed to make us whole and make us feel worthwhile. I could go on this, but we've really been misled, and I think that we're coming to a place where we're going to have leaders, and we're going to have thought leaders, and we're going to have people who see through that, who not only see through that, but don't leverage other suffering to their advantage. Right? They're going to be pro-human. We're getting to that point now. The information is starting to spread, and the people who are suffering right now, who are in the pain being caused by the leaders who are taking advantage of it, I think that there are going to be a lot of epiphanies. There are going to be a lot of people who are liberated out of that thinking, and they're going to start spreading these ideas of wholeness and of worth and of being loved, even when you're in loss, even when you're in failure, even when you fall short of victory, you're still loved. You're still worthy of being loved. We can still acknowledge your greatness and your beauty and your presence, your necessary presence. And so that was what's helped me. I don't know if it's gonna help anyone else. I hope it does. I haven't heard anyone else, you know, talk about it in this way, but like I said, my best friend committed suicide. I think about him all the time. I wish he was still around, and I wish I could talk to him. And I just feel like maybe this kind of talk, this kind of video could have perhaps helped him at a time when he needed it most. But, you know, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.